Every afternoon, at exactly 1 p.m., a man named Henry walked into a small diner on Maple Street. He always chose the same seat, the corner booth by the window, where the sunlight hit just right. The waitress didn't even have to ask. She'd pour him a cup of black coffee, place a single napkin, and wait for his quiet nod. "You know, you could try something different today," she'd tease. Henry would smile, a soft, tired kind of smile. "If I change the order, she might not find me." The waitress never asked who she was, but everyone in that diner knew Henry had been coming alone for years. Some said he was waiting for someone who'd left him. Others whispered she'd passed away. But Henry never said. He just sat there, every day, facing the empty seat across from him, as if at any moment she might walk through the door. Outside, the world changed. New cars, new faces, new owners, but Henry stayed the same. A quiet man, keeping a promise only he understood. One rainy afternoon, the bell over the diner door jingled, and a young woman rushed in, dripping wet from the storm. She was new in town. Her name was Lily. She worked at the bookstore across the street. That day, she took a seat near the window, 2 tables away from Henry. She noticed the way he carefully folded his napkin, the slow way he stirred his coffee, and how his eyes always drifted to the empty seat in front of him. After a few days, her curiosity got the better of her. "Excuse me," she said shyly one afternoon. "You always sit here, waiting for someone?" Henry looked up, surprised. He hadn't realized anyone noticed. "Not waiting," he said softly, "just remembering." Lily smiled awkwardly. "That's kind of beautiful. And kind of sad." Henry chuckled. The first real laugh anyone at the diner had heard from him in months. "Most things worth remembering are both," he replied. After that, she started sitting closer. Sometimes they'd talk about books, weather, or the strange way time passes differently for lonely people. "You know," Lily said one day, "you remind me of my grandfather. He used to wait for my grandma the same way, even after she was gone." Henry looked down at his coffee. "Then your grandfather understood what love really means." She tilted her head. "Which is," he smiled faintly, "that sometimes love doesn't ask for presents. It just asks to be remembered." For a long moment, Lily said nothing. The rain outside tapped softly against the glass, slow, steady, like an old heartbeat. In that silence, she realized something. Henry wasn't just a lonely man in a diner. He was a keeper of a story, one the world had forgotten to ask about. One quiet afternoon, the diner was almost empty. The storm clouds had cleared, and sunlight spilled softly across the tables, making everything look golden and still. Henry sat in his usual seat, tracing his finger along the edge of his coffee cup. Lily sat across from him now. She didn't ask any more if she could join. It had become routine. "You ever been married, Henry?" she asked gently, breaking the silence. He smiled faintly, eyes still on the window. "Once." She hesitated. "What was she like?" He reached into his wallet, slow, careful, as though touching something fragile. From it, he pulled out an old, faded photograph. The woman in the picture had bright eyes and a crooked smile, standing beside a younger Henry in front of a small house with wildflowers growing around the porch. "Her name was Evelyn," he said softly. "She loved yellow flowers, said they were the color of hope." Lily smiled. "She looks kind." She was, Henry nodded. She was also stubborn as hell. They both laughed quietly, and for a brief second, the diner felt alive, filled with the echo of something warm and familiar. Then his tone changed. "She got sick," he said after a pause. "The kind of sickness doctors can't fix with pills." Lily's smile faded. "We fought it for 2 years. Every morning, she'd say, 'Don't you dare eat without me.' So after she was gone," he looked at the empty chair across from him, "I never did." The words hung in the air, quiet, heavy, and beautiful in their sadness. Lily didn't know what to say, so she just nodded, eyes glistening, as if afraid any word might break the moment. You know, Henry said softly, people think grief is about crying or moving on. But it's really about keeping the seat warm, just in case they ever come back. He folded the photo carefully and placed it back in his wallet. Outside, a breeze rustled through the maple trees, scattering yellow leaves across the sidewalk, the same color as hope. Winter came quietly that year. The diner's big window fogged with every breath of cold air, and the smell of coffee mixed with cinnamon and nostalgia. Lily still visited every day, sometimes before work, sometimes after. Henry always greeted her with that soft, weathered smile, the kind that said thank you without using words. One afternoon, she noticed something different. The seat across from Henry, the one that had always been empty, had a small bouquet of yellow flowers resting on it. Evelyn's favorite, he said, noticing her gaze. Lily smiled gently. You brought her flowers. Henry nodded. Her birthday. I never miss it. The way he said it, simple, steady, almost peaceful, made Lily's chest tighten. You know, she said quietly, I think she'd be happy you still come here. Henry looked at the flowers. Maybe, but I wonder if she'd want me to stop. Lily frowned. Stop what? Holding on. For the first time since she'd met him, his voice cracked. I keep this table like a shrine, afraid that letting it go means I'm letting her go. But every night, I go home to silence, and I wonder if maybe I'm the one who never left. Lily reached across the table, her hand trembling slightly, and touched his. Maybe holding on isn't the problem, Henry, she said softly. Maybe it's how you hold on. Maybe love's not meant to trap you in yesterday. Maybe it's supposed to help you live today. Henry looked at her, really looked at the kindness in her eyes, the quiet truth in her words. Outside, snow began to fall slow, soft, like tiny pieces of grace. He whispered, Evelyn used to say the same thing. Lily smiled. Then maybe she sent someone to remind you. For the first time in years, Henry didn't look at the empty seat. He looked at the world outside the snow. The light, the small beauties still left in it. And for a brief, fleeting second, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long, long time. Peace. The new year came quietly. Snow melted from the sidewalks, and the diner replaced its Christmas lights with spring flowers in glass jars. Henry hadn't been in for a few days, and Lily noticed the corner booth, his booth, sat empty. Sunlight streaming through the same window he'd watched for years. On the fourth day, she walked to his house. The old wooden porch creaked under her shoes. A neighbor told her he'd been unwell lately, but still insisted he was just fine. When he opened the door, he looked smaller somehow, the strength in his eyes now mixed with fatigue. Henry, she said softly, you should have called. The diner misses you. He smiled faintly. Even old ghosts need a break. She helped him back to the diner the next day. The waitress greeted him like seeing family again. Haven't seen you in a while, Henry, she said warmly. Had to make sure Heaven still had coffee, he joked, and everyone laughed. He sat down at his usual table. Lily joined him, setting a small vase of yellow flowers between them. For Evelyn, she said. For Evelyn, he echoed, voice gentle. They talked for hours about books, memories, and the funny way life circles back to kindness when you least expect it. As the sun dipped low, Henry looked out the window, that same familiar glow painting his face gold. You know, he said quietly, I think I can finally leave the chair empty now. Lily smiled through the ache in her chest. Then she'd be proud of you. He looked at her with that same peaceful smile. No, dear, she'd be proud of us. That was the last day Henry came to the diner. A week later, the waitress found a letter left under his coffee cup, written in neat, careful handwriting. Asterisk, thank you for keeping her memory alive with me. But now, she and I have found a new table somewhere else. If someone ever asks about the man who sat alone, tell them he wasn't lonely. He was in love, asterisk. The letter ended with one small drawing, a yellow flower. Months passed, and life went on. But every afternoon at 1 o'clock, Lily still sits by that window, with 2 cups of coffee and a single yellow flower on the table, not waiting, not mourning, just remembering.